Hello everyone. Don't strive for the perfection, strive for the progress. But if you don't have the perfection in your work, so what is the use of progress? This is what you need to think. My dear students, I welcome all of you to my third session on Python Revision Tour 2. So in today's class, I will be discussing a concept called tuples. My dear students, please take a notepad next to you, mark down whatever the important points that I discuss in today's class. This will be a helpful session for all of you if you have forgotten about the tuples. Moving on. So my dear students, in today's class, I will discuss 4 important things about tuples. So the first one that I discuss is how to create tuples. The second one that I discuss is tuples versus lists. We have already discussed lists in the previous class. I will just compare the difference between the list and tuples in the second topic. Third one is tuple operations. That is the third one that I discussed. The last one and very important one that you all should know, that tuple functions and methods. This is what I will be discussing in today's session. My dear students, stay tuned and understand all the topics. Please follow me and concentrate throughout the session. Moving on to the next one. How to create tuples. What is tuples? My dear students, if I say tuples, you need to understand the first thing. You need to remember about the first thing, that is parenthesis. That is what I will call it as a round brackets. So if I say the word tuple, the first thing that it should come to your mind, that is round brackets. So round brackets is very important, because using that round brackets we create tuples. That is the first point that you should remember. My dear students, so you can see this example. So I have given the brackets, round brackets, but I don't have anything in this brackets. I don't have anything in this brackets. So what is the use of it? I can create the empty tuples with no data member. So what is the first one that we have? So this is the example to create the empty tuple with no member. So that is what I'm trying to depict with the first one. What is the second one? It's very interesting. Sir, can I have only one member inside the tuple? Yes, but remember, after this first member, so you should use this comma. After the first member, you should use the comma. Whatever the data that you have, after the first data member, you should have the comma operator, and then you can close the parenthesis. So this will help me to create the tuple with only one member, So that is the speciality of this example. So remember, so is it possible to create the tuple with only one member? Yes, you can create the tuple with only one member, my dear students. What is the next one that we have? So this is an example to store the integer. This is an example to store the integer. Sir, should I store only integer? Can I store only integer? Can't I store alphabets? Can't I store mixed data types? Yes, my dear students, all those things you can do. What are the things that you can do? Point number 1, you can store integer. Point number 2, you can store alphabets. Point number 3, you can store strings also, and also in one single tuples you can store all the data type. That is what you need to remember at this point of time, my dear students. So let's go to the next one. Let me discuss what is the syntax to create the tuple now. So this is the syntax to create the tuple. So what is this? So my dear students, here you need to observe this. So I have given the variable name T. I have given the variable name T. Should I call it as a variable? No, it's a name of the tuple. So it's a name of the tuple. My dear students, after this T, I have is equal to, and then you need to observe this. So I have given the round brackets. That is parenthesis. So this will help me to create the empty tuples. My dear students. Then this example will give you, okay, so to have multiple values inside the tuple. This is the syntax to have the multiple values inside the tuple, my dear students. So this is the syntax for all of you to create the tuples. Moving on to the next concept. So my dear students, creating a tuple with a single element that I have already discussed. Suppose if you are creating a tuple, let me just take T. So after that I have 1, then after that I should not forget to have this comma. I should not forget to have this comma. So this comma is very important. This comma is very important if I am creating the tuple with only one element. Okay, that is what you need to remember. So with respect to the tuple, when you have only one element in the tuple. Moving on to the next one. So guys, can I create the tuple with a sequence? So you need to understand sequence. What is the sequence? Sir, can I create the tuple with the existing sequence? Before that, you need to understand the sequence. Yes, my dear students, in the previous class, you need to go back and check. I have discussed the same concept with the list. Okay, what is that I have done? So I have taken the string. This is what I will call it as a existing sequence. This is what I will call it as a existing sequence. Using this existing sequence, can I convert this existing sequence as a tuple? Yes, I can convert this existing sequence as a tuple. Sir, you did not tell me exactly what is this existing sequence and what is this tuple. What is the exact difference between the existing sequence and tuple? You need to observe here. So I have given hello within the double quotes, but after converting this into tuple, so it will exactly look like this. My dear students, observe my example. So it will exactly look like this. So if I want to convert this existing sequence into this tuple, so is it possible for me? Yes, it is possible with the help of this syntax. What is the syntax? So my dear students, this T is the name of the tuple that I have taken. Then after that, I am using a function called tuple. I am using a function called tuple. That function is helping me to convert the existing sequence into tuple. That is what you need to understand in this concept, my dear students. Hope I have made it very simple and clear. So how I can convert the existing sequence into tuples. Moving on to the next one. Sir, how do I take the input from the user and convert that input into the tuples? You need to understand the same syntax that we have discussed for the list. There's little changes there, so you need to observe that change. My dear students, instead of list, I'm using tuple here. In the previous session, I have used, instead of tuple, I have used the list keyword. So instead of that, I am using the tuple. Let us understand this in detail now. So I have input function. So I have used input function. My dear students, please observe this. I'm using this function. Why do I use this function? This function will help me to read the values from the user. Yes or no? This function will help me to read the values from the user. Yes, I'm reading the values, but whatever the value that I'm reading, okay, it is not in the form of tuples. Now I need to convert this values into tuples. Then how do I do? Again, so this value, whatever I'm reading, so I will pass it to the next function, that is tuple. Okay, this function will help me to create this value, whatever I have entered. Okay, so that values will be converted into tuples values with the help of this function, and then the entire value will be stored in the variable t1. So that is what you need to remember. So how to read the values from the keyboard to make it as a tuple. So that is what you need to remember in this particular point of time. Moving on to the next one. My dear students, whatever you are seeing here, all these topics are similar with respect to tuples and list. I have discussed all these topics in the list, and also I have discussed this in the string, but it is the same concept whatever I have discussed in the list and string. I will tell you the difference between the list and tuple, which you should know. It is very important. Let me start with the difference first. What is the difference between the list and tuple? My dear students, the main thing that you need to know, the difference between the list and tuple is, so list will comes under the category of mutable data type. Tuples will comes under the category of immutable data type. So what is the meaning of mutable and immutable data type? I have discussed in my first session, but still I will repeat this. My dear students, if you are able to change the value, so then it will comes under the concept of mutable data type. Suppose if you are not able to change the value, so then it comes under the category of immutable data type. Now can you tell me tuple will come under which data type? Yes, exactly, it will come under immutable data type. Suppose if I have anything in my tuple, I will not be able to change that with respect to index. Suppose if I have in the 0th location, can I change anything in the 0th location which I have? No, I will not be able to change it. So that is what I will call it as a immutable. So tuples will comes under the category of immutable data type. Moving on to the next concept. So the next one is traversing a tuple. So it comes under the concept of operations. Yes, in the operation I have traversing a tuple. What is that I have? I have traversing a tuple. So traversing in the sense visiting each and every element that I have inside the tuple sequentially is what I will call it as a traversing. So how do I do that? With the help of what I will be doing this? So with the help of for loop. So my dear students, please remember, with the help of this for loop, I will be accessing, I will be traversing, I will be visiting each and every element that I have inside this tuple. How do I do that? I am using the for loop to access or to traverse completely whatever I have in the tuple. So that is what you need to remember. So moving on to the next one. The next one is joining of tuples. How do I join tuples? My dear students, I will be using this concatenation operator. With the help of this concatenation operator, I'll be joining these tuples. You need to observe here, I have tuple 1 and I have tuple 2. So what is that I have in the tuple 1? I have 1, 3, 5. What is that I have in the tuple 2? I have 6, 7, 8. So I will be performing the concatenation operation to join two tuples. My question to all of you is, can I perform the concatenation operations for 3 tuples? Can I join 3 tuples at a time? Okay, that is what you need to tell me. Okay, so answer me in the comment box, my dear students. I'll be checking all your answers. So moving on to the next one. I have the replicator operator. All of you know that. So what is the replicator operator? I'm using content whatever I have in the TP1. So that will be repeated 3 times is what the output that you will get. Okay. So that is what you need to understand here. Moving on to the next one. So guys, slicing. So the same syntax what we are using for the list. So the same syntax here also we are using. So please go back and check what we have done in the list. The same syntax, the exact syntax, exact meaning we have for tuple also. So my dear students, the next concept that we have is unpacking. So before that, you need to know, if I write like this, t is equal to 1, 2, 3. So if I write 1, 2, 3, this process is what I will call it as a packing. This process is what I will call it as a packing in tuple. So if I reverse this process, the same thing is what I will call it as a unpacking. Sir, what is the meaning of it? Please observe. Suppose I have 1, then I have comma, 2, comma, 3 is equal to t. So my dear students, I'm just reversing the process. This process is what I will call it as a unpacking. This process is what I will call it as a unpacking. Hope you understood the concept of unpacking. This is what I will call it as a packing. Okay, this is what I will call it as a unpacking. My dear students, you need to remember this. You need to remember this unpacking. Okay, if you just reverse the process of packing, you will get the process of unpacking. So let's move on to the next one. Oh, the very important concept for the day. You need to understand, we have some certain important methods. Okay, so if I don't know the methods in tuples, then I will not be using the tuples to the maximum extent. So my dear students, it is very important that all of you should know the different methods that you have in the tuples. In that, the first one that I am going to discuss is length method. So the length method, so my dear students, it is very important that all of you should know. So if I want to count the number of elements that I have inside the tuple, I will be using the method called length method. I'll be using a method called length method. I'll be discussing this length method in detail with the program at the end of this session. Moving on to the next one, I have max. So why do I have max? My dear students, if I have the elements inside the tuple and I need to know which element is the maximum element that I have. For example, I have 1 to 9. So I don't know what is the maximum value that I have inside my tuple. So I will be using the function called max. I'll be using the function called max. Max method will return the maximum value that I have inside the tuple, my dear students. And the next one I have is min. The same thing, if I want to know the minimum value that I have inside my tuple, I will be using the function, or I'll be using the method, that is min. Okay, so moving on to the next one that I have. So my dear students, index, it is very important that all of you should know, which we have already discussed in the list. My dear students, let me just take an example, t of 1, 2, 3. I just wanted to know what is the index of this 2. So which function will help me to know the index of this 2? So my dear students, the function, that is the method index, will help me to know the value or the index of this data item that I have. So index function or index method will help me to identify or to know the value or the index of this particular value, my dear students. That is what you need to remember. The next one, I have count. My dear students, count will tell me how many number of times that data item is present inside your tuple. I will repeat, count function or method will tell me how many number of times that particular object, that particular data value is present inside this function or inside this tuple. You need to observe, I am using some of the words repeatedly. For example, I am using function and I am using the same thing for method. For example, I have index. That index itself, I am calling it as a method. Sometimes I am calling it as a function. Sir, what is that? Why are you saying both the words? My dear students, purposefully I am using it. Why? Because I can also call that as a function and also I can also call it as a method. Both the words are interchangeable in this context. My dear students, that is what you need to remember. Second important point that you need to remember, I am using the data values or I am using the data objects. I am using a word called objects sometimes. For this, for example, I have t is equal to 1, 2, 3. So I'm using the data values, I'm using the data, I'm using the values, I'm using the objects. All these words I'm using for this. Can I use it? Yes. All these words you can use it. Okay, my dear students, all these things, whatever I have, I can also call it as a data. I can also call it as a value. I can also call it as an object. This will be treated as objects in list and tuples. That is what you need to remember, my dear students. So you understood that count will tell me how many number of times 1 I have inside this tuple. I have given the object as 1. Suppose for example, I have given 1 as a parameter here. Count will check and tell me how many number of times 1 is present inside my tuple. So that is the use of count, my dear students. Okay, so let me take you to the program to understand these concepts in a better way. Okay, let's get into the programs and understand these concepts. I'm just trying to show you how many different ways that you can create the tuples. The first thing that I would like to show you is how I can create the empty tuple. Okay, the second one that I'm trying to show you how I can create the tuple with only one value. You need to observe here, I'm just using the single comma, okay, after the first element. Okay, what is the second one, third one that I have? I'm just trying to create the tuple. What is the name of the tuple? Tuple name is t2 and I have only integers. Okay, so that is what I'm trying to do. And the next one that I have is alphabets. My dear students, you need to observe I'm using quotes here. I'm using what? I'm using quotes. Then the next, that is the last one, my dear students, I'm just trying to take the mixed value. All the type of, most of the type, like, you know, I have here, I have integer and I have float and I have string. So this is what I'm trying to show you with the mixed values. Can I create the tuple with the mixed value? Of course you can create the tuple with the mixed value. And I'm just trying to print this tuples for all of you. Let me show you the output, how exactly the output I will get if I run this program. So guys, you are getting the empty tuple here. Okay, after that you have only one data item inside the tuple, and then you have the integer tuple, you have the alphabet, and you have mixed value tuple. This is how I will be creating the tuples with the different data values or different objects. Let me show you the program which is having the functions of tuples, how exactly the functions of tuple is working. Let me show you with that. Please observe the program that I have here, my dear students. In this program, I am trying to show you the functions of tuples. So what are the functions of tuples that I am using here? Please observe. So, madam, I have taken this tuple. So in my tuple, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. Okay, that is what the objects or that is what the data values that I have in my tuple. Then after that, I'm just trying to print this as it is. I'm just trying to print this as it is. Then after that, I'm using the function called length. I'm using a function called length. You need to observe here how I'm using this function. Inside this length, I'm passing the tuple as a parameter. Inside this length function, I'm passing the tuple as a parameter. What is this t? T is this tuple. The entire tuple I'm passing. So after passing this tuple inside this length function will calculate the number of objects that I have inside this tuple, and then it will print it as it is. Okay, it will print it as it is. My dear students, I will repeat, length function will tell me the length of the tuple that I have. Okay, the length of the tuple that I have, the number of objects that I have in the tuple. So that is what I will get. So the same way I'm using the max. So I'm just passing the t as a parameter here. So max function will give me the maximum value that I have in the tuple. In the same way, I have min. My dear students, min will give me the minimum value that I have inside the tuple. Okay, and the next one that I have is count. So inside this function, what is that I'm trying to do? So my dear students, t dot count. Please observe the syntax. I'm not passing the t inside this count. Why? I'm just explain it to you. So my dear students, I need to calculate for this tuple t dot count. So inside this function, I'm passing the value which I wanted, how many number of times that I have inside the tuple. That is what you need to observe here. That is what you need to observe. How many number of times 6 is present is what I would like to know. That's why I'm passing 6 as a parameter inside the function called count. So count will give me the number of times the 6 is present inside the tuple. So next one that I have is t dot index. So I want to know 1 is present in which index. That is what I'm trying to find out. So 1 is present in which index is what I wanted to print. So that is what I'm trying to print. Let me just run this program and I show you how exactly this is working. Okay, so my dear students, I'm just trying to print this as it is. I'm just trying to print the tuple as it is. You can observe here, and the next one, the length of this tuple is 7. The length of the tuple is 7, and the maximum value that I have inside this tuple is 6, and the minimum is 1. The count, how many number of times the 6 is present? 2 times 6 is present, that's why the count is 2. And the index of this 1 is present in the 0th location, that's why the index is 0. My dear students, I have tried my best to give you the best knowledge with respect to tuples. It's your responsibility that you need to explore more and more. You need to experiment a lot with these concepts and try out different programs. Then only you will understand this concept in depth. My dear students, take care. I will be discussing the next concept, that is dictionaries, in the next session. Until then, bye bye.